A lone drifter, a hidden fortune, a trail packed with danger. It's Louis L'Amour, Mustang Man. Stick around. Welcome back to Kevin Toll Reads, where today we are talking Mustang Man by Louis L'Amour, published in 1966. This Western marks book number 13 in the Sackett series. Yes, this month, the month of April, we are reading books 13 and 14 in the Sackett series, at least we being the few of us that are left and aren't quitters, but I digress. But anyways, this interesting tale revolves around Nolan Sackett, and let's dive right into the summary of this thing. And so we find ourselves in the late 1870s. Nolan Sackett is our main protagonist. He is one of the infamous Clinch Mountain Sacketts of Tennessee. He's minding his own business when he is hired at the tune of $50 to guide a group through some dangerous territory in the Texas Panhandle and into New Mexico. This group is comprised of a younger, purdy lady, a older gentleman, and an Indian that seems very cagey and is a man of few words. What starts out as a simple job for the tune of $50 turns deadly, and Nolan realizes that this group is after a hidden fortune, and none other than the Nathan Hume hidden gold fortune that is supposedly buried around the area of Rabbit Ears Canyon. And there's others that are after this fortune as well, and they're willing to kill for it. And Nolan must face the facts and try to survive on his wits, his gun, his code of honor, and most importantly, his reputation as a Sackett. And so what did I really enjoy about this? Well, I really enjoyed some of the antagonists. I thought Sylvie, Ralph, and Andrew Carnes, I thought they were really good antagonists. Sylvie especially, very cunning woman antagonist, very kind of disturbing in a way. I really enjoyed that. Steve Hooker plays a small role, and he is an antagonist as well. I thought his role in this story was kind of interesting. Obviously, getting to know more about Nolan Sackett was very enjoyable because he has been mentioned in previous entries in the Sackett series, played smaller roles, and so it's always interesting to get a more expansive arc on the different characters in this family of Sacketts. I think Nolan, he's constantly referred in this story as an outlaw, but yet he continues to do things that kind of go against or counter towards that. And I thought that was really interesting. Penelope Humes, she appears as this beautiful 19-year-old that needs his help, and she's kind of out of her depths, but things start happening, progressing through this story, and you kind of question, is that truly the case? I really liked Harry Mims. He gives Nolan a horse at the beginning when he's kind of out there in the elements and needs help. And then next thing you know, he comes back later in the story, and I really enjoyed that part of it. It's a super fast read. Like every other Louis L'Amour, it's very quick, it's punchy, it's right to the point. I read this thing in an afternoon. It just flew through it. In terms of excerpts, I have one that I really liked, and it was, the more you get into Indian country, the more of a praying man you've got to be. And that is indicative of many of these novels by Louis L'Amour. I don't have any criticisms for this, but in terms of rating and overall, I give this a 3.9. It's pretty solid. It's a good read. I don't think it's a great read, but it's definitely a good one, a good entry in the Sackett series. Not as good as the Tell Sackett ones, so I'm hopeful that I'm going to get a few more before we're through all 17 of the Sackett books. But I did enjoy Nolan Sackett. I think it's classic Western storytelling from L'Amour. Again, fast-paced. It's very energizing. It's a great entry point to Louis L'Amour's books as well. Even though this is a late entry into the Sackett series is kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a patchwork of a series. You can definitely tell that some of them were written all throughout many different decades and kind of worked in. And this is definitely a story you could read as a standalone or an entry point into L'Amour. There's definitely some heavy themes of honor, If you love books with strong characters, I think Nolan kind of steps up in this regard in this entry, and I think it's well with your time. And that is my take on Mustang Man by Louis L'Amour. I gave it a 3.9 out of 5. And so on to the next book for this book review. And so my second book for this book review video is I finished Axe by Ed McBain. This is my third entry in the 87th Precinct series, which spans the course of 55 books, I believe. This was published in 1960. And so the summary of this is a local apartment superintendent, kind of businessman. He is killed by a wood axe down in his kind of workshop office in one of the apartment complexes. The only clue really is the axe itself. And there's a city full of suspects. You know, George Lasser, who is the superintendent that perishes in the story, his head split open with an axe. Detectives Corella and Hawes, young Cotton Hawes, are on the case from representing the 87th Precinct. So I was really excited. I like Corella as a character. Lasser seems very clean, but the detectives start to dig deeper, and they start discovering kind of a web of disgruntled employees, sketchy financial dealings, side characters, and friends that paint a picture that could be good or bad. And things start to reveal many different possibilities of what could have happened. This case kind of has twists. There's office politics, there's some red herrings, and it's really well done by McBain. So let's talk about what I enjoyed. And so Steve Carella, I really like him as a character, even though I've only read 3 87th Precinct novels as of today. I really enjoy him as a character. I really enjoy his wife, Teddy. She's deaf. I think it adds a really interesting dynamic as a character. I also like their twins. In this particular entry, this is book number 18 in the series. And so I read the first book, and then I read another one. I think it was maybe like book 8. And this is book 18, so I'm kind of bouncing around. But I like the fact that I got a little more kind of character arc with Steve and Teddy, and they have twins, April and Mark, young kids. And so I thought that it was an interesting dynamic, some of the dad and kid elements in the book. Hawes, Cotton Hawes, the other detective that's working on this case with Steve Carell, I thought he was really good. The newer guy kind of has a white streak in his hair. He's a bit of more fire. He's kind of balancing the team out. I think Corella and Hawes kind of play off each other during the investigation and dealing with some of the potential witnesses and kind of bouncing stuff back and forth, especially when they're questioning the Lazar family, and the son is very, very different, kind of home-ridden. And so it adds some interesting dynamics. I thought McBain's writing really punchy, really straight, matter of fact. I just really enjoy that. I think both L'Amour and McBain, that is really just, it's really something that I've grown to enjoy so much in this past year. And so I just really find myself kind of gravitating to reading more of their books. And so pace, unbelievable. It kept things moving along. There was no kind of slog here. It really stuck true to kind of, instead of like a chase or this epic shootout in this one, this was definitely a case of where they're trying to piece together logic and then navigate some of the red herrings and twists. Police procedural, but not overly done where it's kind of boring. This one was really good. In terms of excerpts, there was one that stood out to me. The axe had done its work quickly. No one had heard a thing, which meant the killer knew the building, knew the hours, knew exactly when to strike. And I thought that was pretty a great summary of the premise of this thing. No criticisms in this entry. It's, again, like the L'Amour. It's too quick and too fast-paced to really have any really criticisms. I think if I really gave it some deeper thought, maybe having both of these a little longer would have been interesting, but I like them for what they're worth. In terms of rating and overall, I give this a 4 out of 5. McBain's writing, his voice is clean. He adds a lot to the atmosphere. I don't know how he does that, but it's just his word choice and structure. It just creates this authentic, like you're you're kind of just hovering above these detectives watching this all unfold, and you really get a sense of how gritty everything is, and these characters, they have almost a smell, almost kind of a feel as you're reading this, and that's very powerful as from an author standpoint, and McBain does it really, really well. I think he gives kind of a pulse to the city as well. Just really good writing. Although this isn't my favorite of the three 87th Precinct novels I've read, it's definitely still a 4 out of 5. It's a solid entry. I think that's going to be indicative of this series as I get deeper into it. Just like the Prey series by John Sanford, there's going to be books that are kind of okay, and there's going to be books that are good, and there's going to be books that are great. I think with McBain, I think that most of them are going to be pretty just good and solid, and then I'm going to have some great ones. And so that's my kind of, we shall see, but I really enjoyed this. Axe from Ed McBain, I gave it a 4 out of 5, and my third entry into the 87th Precinct series. I'm really enjoying this, and I hope you enjoy these reviews, and have a great rest of your week. I will talk to you all later. Thanks.